You get paid on Friday. By Sunday, the money is mostly gone. No luxury purchases, no expensive vacations, just bills, subscriptions, groceries, and a dozen tiny expenses you barely noticed. That's when you realize the problem isn't how much you earn. It's where your money goes when you're not paying attention. Maybe rent came out first. Then the grocery bill was higher than you expected. Then the car payment. Then insurance. Then a credit card minimum from something you barely remember buying. And somewhere between the coffee, the gas, the streaming subscriptions, and one tired takeout order after work, the number in your account stopped feeling like income and started feeling like a countdown. Most people think personal finance for beginners starts with making more money. And, yes, more income helps. But here is the part people do not like admitting. If your money has no system, a bigger paycheck often just gives your bad habits a larger room to run around in. If you like calm, honest financial breakdowns with real examples, real numbers, and no hype, subscribe to the channel before we go deeper, because this is not about becoming perfect with money. It is about finally seeing where your paycheck is actually going. The core idea is simple. Money management is not about being cheap. It is about giving every dollar a job before your emotions, your stress, your boredom, or someone else's marketing department gives it one for you. A good budget is not a prison. A good budget is a map. It tells you what is fixed, what is flexible, what is leaking, and what can be redirected toward a life that does not feel like financial panic every 2 weeks. And for beginners, the goal is not to understand every investing term, every tax strategy, or every market cycle on day one. The goal is to stop bleeding cash in places you do not even notice, because tiny habits can quietly decide whether your life gets easier or heavier. That is why budgeting for beginners should not start with a spreadsheet that makes you feel guilty. It should start with one honest question. When payday comes, does your money move by intention, or does it disappear by reaction? Take someone like Marcus. He is 32, lives outside Dallas, makes a decent salary, not rich, not struggling on paper. His coworkers think he is doing fine because he drives a clean SUV, grabs lunch with the team, and never complains about money. But every other Thursday, Marcus does the same thing. His paycheck lands, he pays rent, covers the car loan, sends money to his credit card, buys groceries, fills the tank, and then stares at what is left like the bank made a mistake. The truth is, the bank did not make a mistake. His life had already spent the money before he received it. Marcus was not reckless. That is what makes the story uncomfortable. He was not buying luxury watches or flying first class. He was doing the normal American middle-class thing. A little convenience here, a little upgrade there, a little minimum payment to make the month work. His problem was that every expense had a reasonable explanation by itself. The SUV felt necessary because the old car was embarrassing. The higher phone bill felt normal because everyone had the same plan. The lunches felt deserved because work was stressful. Nothing looked crazy until he added it together. One Thursday night, after paying bills, Marcus opened his banking app and saw $214 left. 2 weeks until the next paycheck. He sat at the kitchen table with a half-cold dinner and did what many people do. He told himself he needed to earn more. But the real issue was not just income. The real issue was that he had never built a payday routine. Payday was not a plan. It was a reaction. Money came in, pressure showed up, and the loudest bill got paid first. This is where most beginners get budgeting wrong. They think a budget is supposed to tell them what they are allowed to enjoy. But a budget is really supposed to tell them what is already controlling them. Marcus thought his car payment was the problem, and it was part of the problem. But when he looked closer, the car was only one piece. The bigger pattern was that he had no margin, no breathing room, no space between his paycheck and the next surprise. That missing space matters, because when you have no margin, every small problem becomes a debt problem. A flat tire becomes a credit card balance. A dentist bill becomes stress. A forgotten annual subscription becomes an argument with yourself. The part people overlook is that personal finance management is not built during the emergency. It is built before the emergency, in the boring weeks when nothing dramatic is happening, and you choose where the extra $50 or $100 goes. Comment checklist below and check the pinned comment. I'll leave the free checklist there so you can spot which hidden financial traps might be quietly draining your cash flow before you even notice them. Now here is where it gets deeper. The average person does not lose control of money in one dramatic moment. They lose control through categories that sound normal: housing, transportation, food, insurance. Debt, subscriptions, taxes. Each one feels reasonable alone, but together they can turn a decent income into a life that still feels tight. Housing is usually the first giant category. When rent or mortgage takes too much of the paycheck, everything else becomes harder. A person can make a solid income and still feel broke because the roof over their head is eating the space where savings were supposed to grow. Then comes transportation. A car payment does not feel dangerous when the salesperson says it in monthly numbers. $480 sounds manageable. But add insurance, gas, maintenance, registration, repairs, and interest, and suddenly the car is not just transportation. It is a second rent payment with tires. Food is another quiet leak. Nobody feels irresponsible buying lunch because they had a long morning. Nobody feels reckless grabbing dinner because they are tired. But when convenience becomes the default, the grocery budget and the restaurant budget start fighting each other, and both of them win against you. Credit card debt is different because it does not just take money, it takes future choices. A balance from 6 months ago can still be sitting there today, quietly charging interest while you are trying to convince yourself that next month will finally be different. Insurance, taxes, and student loans are less emotional, so people ignore them until they feel trapped. They are not fun to talk about. They do not look like lifestyle inflation, but they still shrink the paycheck before you get to decide what life you are trying to build. Subscriptions are small enough to avoid guilt and steady enough to become dangerous. $12 here, $17 there, a forgotten app, a streaming service you barely open, a membership you meant to cancel. Tiny amounts do not stay tiny when they repeat without permission. This is why how to manage money is not really about tracking every penny forever. It is about seeing the pattern. Fixed expenses create pressure. Flexible expenses reveal habits. Debt removes options. And without a plan, your future keeps losing negotiations to your present mood. Here is the psychological trap. Most people already know at least one thing they should change. They know the card balance is too high. They know the car is expensive. They know eating out is getting out of hand. But knowing is easier than changing when your brain is tired. Decision fatigue makes money feel heavier. After a long shift, after dealing with kids, traffic, meetings, bills, and bad sleep, the brain does not want a financial strategy. It wants relief. And relief often has a checkout button. Scarcity makes it worse. When someone feels behind, they often spend to feel normal for a moment. A new shirt, a better dinner, a weekend trip they cannot really afford. Not because they are stupid, but because feeling deprived all the time makes the smallest upgrade feel like proof they are still okay. Social comparison adds another layer. Marcus did not want to look rich. He just did not want to look behind. That is a very different kind of pressure. It is quiet, and it makes people buy the life they think they should already have. FOMO is not only an investing problem. It happens in everyday spending too. Friends book a trip, and you say yes before looking at the numbers. Someone upgrades their apartment, and yours suddenly feels smaller. A coworker buys a new car, and your paid-off car starts feeling like a personal failure. That is why money mindset without a money system is not enough. You can tell yourself you want financial peace, quiet wealth, and a debt-free journey. But if the calendar, the bills, and the automatic payments are running the show, your intentions will keep losing. Think of your cash flow like a house with a slow leak behind the wall. At first, nothing looks broken. The lights still work. The kitchen still looks clean. You can invite people over and pretend everything is fine. But behind the wall, water is spreading. Not enough to panic today. Enough to weaken things later. That is what small leaks do in a financial life. They rarely destroy you in one purchase. They weaken your ability to handle the next problem. Credit card debt is like an anchor tied to future income. You can still move, but every step takes more effort. You still get paid, but part of that paycheck is already walking backward to pay for past decisions. Investing is the opposite when it is done calmly and consistently. It is not exciting at first. It feels almost too quiet. But over time, a simple investing habit can become a machine in the background, doing work that your tired brain does not have to do every day. The mistake is trying to build that machine while the leaks are still wide open. Saving versus investing is not always a debate about which one is smarter. Sometimes the first job is to create enough breathing room so you are not forced to sell, borrow, or panic every time life gets expensive. Comment checklist below if you want the simple money audit. I'll pin it in the comments so you can look at your own cash flow without guessing, without shame, and without turning your whole life into a complicated finance course. Here is the honest starting point. Do not begin by trying to fix your entire financial life in one weekend. Begin by writing down your fixed expenses, because those are the expenses that show up whether you are motivated or exhausted. Next, separate necessary spending from emotional spending. Necessary spending keeps your life running. Emotional spending usually tries to change how you feel for the next 20 minutes. Both may look the same in your banking app, but they come from very different places. Then look for recurring leaks. Not because subscriptions are evil, but because automatic charges are dangerous when they outlive your attention. If something charges you every month, it should earn its place every month. After that, build a small emergency buffer before trying to optimize everything. Even $500 can change how your brain reacts to a problem. Without a buffer, every surprise feels like a threat. With a buffer, the same surprise becomes annoying, but manageable. Once the leaks slow down, decide what your next dollar is supposed to do. Maybe it attacks high-interest debt. Maybe it builds savings. Maybe it starts simple investing through a low-cost index fund. The order depends on your situation, but the point is the same. Do not let leftover money stay unemployed. And please do not confuse simple with weak. The person who quietly saves, pays down debt, avoids lifestyle inflation, and invests consistently may look boring for a while. But boring can become powerful when it repeats long enough. The big reveal is this. Personal finance is not really about numbers first. It is about whether your daily decisions are protecting your future self or quietly handing that future self the bill. If your paycheck keeps disappearing, the answer is not always a bigger paycheck. Sometimes the answer is a clearer system, fewer leaks, and the courage to stop financing a life that only looks fine from the outside. So look at your own life honestly. Which expense have you been defending because it feels normal? Which payment is stealing your breathing room? Which habit keeps pretending to be small because it never hurts all at once? Comment checklist below and check the pinned comment. I'll leave the free money audit there, along with the community details, so you can start seeing your cash flow clearly instead of guessing where your paycheck went. Money rarely changes your life in one dramatic moment. More often, it changes quietly, through the small decisions that finally stop leaking and start working for you.